pleased to welcome Dean Boomer Molberg, who is now joining the Daily Faceoff and Nation Network family with Barn Burner on Flamesnation, which debuts next week. This is our All 32 segment delivered by DoorDash. Dean is going to help us walk through some Calgary Flames questions based in Calgary, that new show launching next week. And so, Dean, we're thrilled to have you part of the team. And let me throw this at you before you get going. Who is the clutch player of the Dean Boomer Molberg barn burner team? Is it you or is it Pinder, Rhett? Who is it?
Well, I was going to say it might be you, Frank. Do you want to take some credit, or do you even? I mean, because this whole thing, you had a hand in all of this kind of happening. So I think maybe you have that clutch gene out of the whole group.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible. We're thrilled to see you guys launch, and really glad, as I said, to have you part of the team. I joined you guys every week last year on Sportsnet, and now excited to do the same this season coming up and talk Flames and NHL with you guys every week. You can catch Barn Burner every day, Monday to Friday, 10:30 to noon Mountain Time. And Dean, let's dive into the Calgary Flames. What a change this summer. What an off season for Brad Treliving. My question for you is, when you consider the additions of Huberdeau, MacKenzie Weegar, and Nazem Kadri, putting aside the point totals for 1 second, which addition do you think is going to be the most impactful for the Flames?
It's hard to look at the first two and say that it's going to be Kadri, but I just feel like because it was one of those things that was in the mix for a while. Kadri had some offers, July 13th, whatever it ended up being, let's say July 1. But he had some offers on day one of free agency, and then as the money started to go away, so did the suitors. And the Flames were in there on day one. Numbers change as time passes and fewer teams are in the mix. And the number that they ended up settling on, I think, it was on the table for both sides for quite some time. And for Treliving, he had to decide, do I want that kind of term? Do I want that much money? And I'm going to have to make a secondary deal with Sean Monahan to move out some money, and that's going to cost. So it was cost on top of cost, but they just love the player. They love the fit. The coach, the player, the GM, the team, the style, everything was just such a perfect fit. And is the deal too long? It probably is. You don't like any of these deals in the last year or two as they go. But right now, as we sit here on the start of 2022-23, the Flames have probably the best center depth that they've had in my time here. It's been 15 years. To have Backlund now as your third line center, you always felt like if you ever had Michael Backlund in a third line center spot, you were in such good shape. And then Kadri and then Lindholm. Down the middle, it looks as good as they've had here in a long time. But just that extra, that spit and vinegar in his game that he's got. Sutter loves him. The GM loves him. And I was at the game the other night. It's preseason hockey. But you wouldn't have known it by watching Nazem Kadri on the ice. He just doesn't know any other way. He goes, it's compete, it's dig, it's grind the entire game. So I can't wait to watch him for 82 here in Calgary, because I think he's just a perfect fit. Now, Huberdeau's tremendous, and Weegar has opened a lot of eyes here, and I know they're working hard to get him signed. But Nazem Kadri is going to be, I think, the straw that stirs the drink. That kind of shift disturbing that they maybe lost in Matthew Tkachuk, they gained at least as much, maybe more, in Nazem Kadri.
Dean, I wanted to ask you about Jacob Markstrom. Obviously, had a tremendous season last year, led the league in shutouts, but he also started a career-high 63 games, and you can make a case the wheels fell off in round two. I do think he was the reason Calgary lost that series to Edmonton. It was probably closer than Calgary got credit for, but the goaltending disappeared. So I'm wondering, do you think there's going to be some load management this year with Markstrom maybe giving an extra 5 or 10 starts to Dan Vladar?
You would think so, because you have recent history to lean back on now. It was really kind of, it was COVID and all of that, but I agree with you, and I would never have guessed, even after watching round one against Dallas, he was tremendous and had to be to beat the Stars in that series. I would not have guessed that he would have faltered the way he did in round two. I think that he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder, something to prove. But going through that schedule last year, you could always build a case as to why he should start. He was either coming off of a very good start, or there was something in his game you wanted to round back into form. And Darryl always has ridden veteran goalies. You go back to LA with Jonathan Quick. Quick played so many games. But I do wonder if maybe there was a lesson learned last year for both player and coach. Now, the other day, Markstrom said, I'd like to play more games. That's media speak, I think. But the secondary to that is Vladar's been very good. He was very good last year. He's been very good in this preseason for what it's worth. But if Vladar can get some starts and play well, not that he has to earn Daryl Sutter's trust, but Daryl Sutter has never liked backup goalies. I remember going back to when his first tour of duty here as head coach, and Jamie McLennan was the backup. They were not throwaway games just because the backup was going in. You better get in, you better be ready, and you better win. We only call on you once every 2 or 3 weeks. It was a tough spot for a backup goalie, but the case was that it was just the case that you didn't play, and if you didn't play well and you didn't win, you weren't going to get back in for a long time, or there might be somebody else coming in to take your spot. So I think they have to look at it. 2 years ago, Markstrom got hurt partway through the season. Last year with COVID, and there were some stretches there. He had some time off, but it's still, whether it was the Oilers flu or whatever it was in the playoffs, he just was not himself. I don't think they have a choice. But again, it's Daryl Sutter's team, and he loves veterans, and he loves his number one goalies, so we'll have to see. But I think Vladar has proven through last year and through the start of this year already that he's capable and probably deserving of more games.
Yeah, Boomer, the Oilers, for whatever reason, have been Markstrom's kryptonite in his career, not just last season in the playoffs. So interesting to watch and see how that develops quickly. I want to ask you the question that everyone in Calgary has been asking all summer after these acquisitions. Are the Flames better, worse, or the same?
I'll tell you what, for the people that, there was a lot of hand-wringing about the core. We heard it all the time. They got to shake up the core. What are they going to do with the core? Well, the core is shook. Whether, and not to say everybody was to blame or it was even any of it was to blame, but Giordano, Monahan, Gaudreau, Tkachuk, it's gone. This is a completely new look team. I just think naturally it's going to take some time for it to come together. I know that there's been a lot of people, I know different models that guys use to project. A lot of people see the Flames doing very well this year. I don't see them taking a backward step. I think it's going to be a bit of a different team. There were a lot of high-scoring games last year. Their goals for were really high. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be a bit of a different look. But I think the win totals will be where they were a year ago, maybe a smidge better. I think this is a good team. They're looking to add. I think they want a little bit more in their top 9. Sonny Milano came in, maybe some hope there that he was going to be able to make an impact. He really didn't. Cody Eakin was a depth guy. PTO, he was released. But I think they have an abundance of guys in the back end, an extra body or two on the blue line. They're worth their weight in gold as soon as you get an injury or two. I just wonder if you get into the start of the season and if Brad Treliving isn't looking to maybe get a little bit deeper up front. They feel good in net. They feel good on the back end. I think they want to get Weegar signed here in the next week or so, ideally. And they're set on the blue line. So if they can get just a little bit more up front, it does have a feel kind of like a win now thing. You go full term on Huberdeau and you bring in Kadri, you're basically all in. You've pushed your chips in. So to go out and maybe spend another draft pick or find another forward, I wouldn't be surprised if in the first 6 weeks of the season or so you see another guy come in here to help bolster those forwards.
Yeah, my bold prediction, Boomer, maybe they're not quite as good in the regular season, but with this core and this group, they're maybe better suited for playoff success. We'll see how it all plays out. You can check out Barn Burner on flamesnation.ca and YouTube starting next week, 10:30 a.m. to noon Mountain Time with Boomer, Pinder, and Rhett Warner. We're looking forward to it. Can't wait. So glad to have you part of the family.